Hello, and welcome back to the Faye Banner Review, where we talk about IS making the worst banner theme decisions of all time. Do I even have to elaborate? Today, we have a brand new harem bride banner thing featuring Celif Love Interest 1, Celif Love Interest 2, Celif Love Interest 3, and Celif Love Interest 4. Also Celif himself, but this isn't about him. And as per tradition, I will be using this coveted line graph that may or may not be a line graph at the end of the day to rank the brand new bride banner. Today's ranking will be based on how many terrible Celif ships are on this banner, and you should consider shipping yourself with that like and subscribe button to help support me and the channel. That was one of the worst things I've ever said in my life. First up, we have Celif, and this is his first non-obligatory alt in Heroes, which feels really weird because I thought IS hated this dude. They probably still do, but hey, now he has just as many versions as Reinhardt, which is either really great to many of you guys listening or really, really sad. You guys can be the judge of that. Anything you want to say to your loyal audience, Celif?
There is no doubt that Julia will be radiant in a wedding dress.
Kinda wish you kept that to yourself, actually. Let's see. Celif comes with Legacy Axe, which is a slaying axe with a bunch of stats, penalty neutralization, upwards of 25 true damage based on active bonuses and penalties, upwards of 2 special jumps on both his first attack and follow-up attack, built-in miracle, and for allies within 3 rows and columns, they get attack and speed bonuses during combat and have their penalties neutralized. Celif also comes with a brand new PRF skill in the Air of Light, which is a Canto Distance Shadow Shift C slot that grants a bunch of statuses to himself and allies, including no follow-up, incited, and attack and speed bonuses, as well as extra movement to himself and any sword, lance, and axe unit, as well as any infantry or flying unit, gets additional attack and speed bonuses during combat, 7 true damage reduction, and restores 7 HP after combat. Hey, this unit's actually not that bad. His combat is kinda neat. Special jumps on each attack with innate miracle and a bunch of true damage should allow him to defeat things pretty easily. And even beyond his combat, he has a lot of support mechanics in his kit that really allow him to function in both roles, with the biggest part probably coming from the extra movement. I initially thought the extra movement was for sword, lance, axe, infantry, and flyers, and then I decided to use 5th grade reading comprehension skills and realized it applied to any sword, lance, and axe unit, as well as all infantry and flyers. This means armors and cavalry units can also take advantage of it if they're a sword, lance, and axe, which is great because I already hated dealing with Emblem Erica enough as is. Now she doesn't even need the Sigurd ring anymore, so that's terrifying. You could also pair it up with Celif to make, get this, another 4-move Celif. Isn't that crazy? My genius is unparalleled. Celif also comes with Haze Slice, Attack Speed Excel, and a brand new B slot in Potent Assault, which is a combination of 2 skills that already existed, which makes it new. Kinda. It grants 20% speed or defense-based true damage depending on which stat is higher, inflicts speed and defense penalties on the foe during combat, reduces all pierceable damage reduction by 50%, and grants potent follow 40% to 80% depending on the condition. That sure is Potent and Assault Force as one skill. For what it's worth, Assault Force just trades Potent for penalty neutralization, and Potent 4 trades nothing because it sucks now. But is it worth running this over something like Momentum? I don't know, maybe? It has a fair share of its own benefits though, so it's definitely not as cut and dry, but also Momentum is still locked to Emblem Sigurd because he's a greedy asshole that wouldn't pass it down to his son. And if you do end up with a copy of Emblem Sigurd, then you're better off keeping a copy since... Override! But yeah, it's a decent B slot. And other than that, that sure is Celif. He's a pretty great cavalry nuke with solid support capabilities that pairs well on a lot of teams. So solid in fact that I started to jug my draw to the limitless options he provides. I wish I was funny enough to come up with that. I just stole it from my live chat. Next, there's Lars, and she's a Lance infantry unit this time around. Blah, 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 blah. I didn't write an opening segment for Lars, so I'm going to pretend that I did and move on to her kit. Let's see. Lars comes with Brilliant Bryden, which is one of the best names ever for any sort of weapon. But it also inflicts speed and defense penalties, exposure, and discord on the closest foes at the start of the turn, gets a bunch of stats during combat, true damage and true damage reduction based on 20% of her speed, as well as an additional 20% true damage reduction if a foe special goes off, potent follow 100%, and slaying. just like all the other PRFs. Also, Lars stole Crusader's Astra off her mom, effectively making her a carbon copy, which is kind of on brand for her. They both have the special, decent support, they're from FE4. Yeah, they're pretty similar in a lot of ways. Ira's support leans towards buffing allies, which is a lot more consistent than Lars' debuff support since it can be cleansed, but it's not bad support at least. Well, Discord sucks, but otherwise. Ira also has significantly more true damage, going as high as a flat amount of 25, whereas Lars has 20% of her speed, which will rarely scale to that degree. But just like her support, she trades out some true damage for, nothing actually, she just does less damage. And yeah, this really is just Ira, but slightly worse. And because I already covered Ira, I could just copy paste the segment here. Yeah, she can swing her sword, and she hits hard, and she makes me hard. I don't remember saying that. Lars also comes with perfect attack speed, brutal tempest, and a brand new B-slot in potent finish, which may or may not in fact be new at the end of the day. Potent finish inflicts speed and defense penalties on the foe, grants 7 true damage reduction, 15 true damage if her special is ready or already went off, restores 7 HP on every hit, and grants potent follow 40% to 80% depending on the condition. That sure is potent, and Finish has one new skill. For what it's worth, Finish is an A slot, so it's not directly competing with it per se, mostly just trading the slot itself. And Potent 4 trades nothing because it sucks now. Wait, I already said that. Now with Potent Finish being a thing, you could stack Finish skills in every equipable slot, which is pretty funny. Finish A slot, Potent Finish B slot, even Attack Wave C slot, and a Finish seal. And when you add all that true damage together, you get a lot of true damage that immediately gets soaked up by Snake Lady. And other than that, that sure is Lars. She seems okay, but I'm not really convinced that she's going to be anything that amazing for the most part. But worst case scenario, you have a worse legendary Ira who's now a worse 6 range unit because she's 5 range with Celica Ring. Movement bonuses were a big mistake. And then there's Tine, and she's the demote of the banner. Demotes have been fairly interesting lately, with the last one being a generic, and the last one being a generic, and the one before that being a generic. You know what the deal is here. Let's see. Tine comes with Bridal Bouquet Plus, which grants some stats and nullifies bonuses off the foe during combat, grants upwards of 15 true damage, and allies within 3 rows and columns get attack and speed bonuses, and neutralizes all bonuses off the foe during combat. And that's about it. It's a nice enough weapon for anybody willing to shell out the orbs, but worst case scenario, there's always the Crab Tome Jeddah has if you'd rather save your orbs. And it has more true damage in it, so...
Death is a blessing.
Otherwise, it sure is a generic Tomcav, which really leaves no room for open discussion. Like, yeah guys, look at the unit that sucks. And not just sucks, but sucks dick! Tine also comes with Moonbow, Attack Speed Catch, and Speed Res Far Trace 4. It's fine enough for a demote, I guess. That said, it really is just a bunch of filler skills for the most part. Filler skills, more like a bunch of shit. And other than that, that sure is Tine. She's pretty bad. And last, there's Julia and Ishtar, who are the duo unit this time around. Wait, Ishtar? Initially, I was extremely confused as to why Ishtar was the backpack to Julia. That confusion never really left. I guess for what it's worth, they do share some common ground, like their ties to Julius, and both being the absolute worst Celif ships of all time. I am not sorry, Ishtar Celif crack shippers. I respect the grind, though. Let's see. Julia comes with Loving Bouquets, which is a slaying dragon effectiveness tome that inflicts a bunch of attack and res penalties on the foe during combat, nullifies those foes' bonuses during said combat, grants upwards of 15 true damage and true damage reduction, nullifies guard, grants a special jump of -1 before her first attack, dual phase brave if she can meet a res check of 10, and allies within 3 rows and columns of Julia get attack and res bonuses during combat, neutralize any bonuses off the foe, and get a special jump of 1 before their first attack. Julia also comes with a brand new PRFB slot in Full Light and Dark, which inflicts attack and res penalties, sabotage, and schism on the closest foes with less res than her at the start of each phase. Moreover, if enough foes have the sabotage status inflicted on on them, Julia will also grant Canto 1 in a new guaranteed follow-up status that works in both the player and enemy phase to herself and allies. Julia then also inflicts even more attack and res penalties on the foe during combat, gets 20% res-based true damage and true damage reduction, reduces pierceable damage reduction by 50%, and nullifies any form of adaptive damage during combat. On top of a duo button that grants empathy and -1 special cooldown to herself and allies within 2 spaces that refreshes every 3rd turn. Yeah, she's alright. I can't say I've ever been the biggest fan of res checks for nukes, since a lot of the time they end up fighting some of the most min-max stuff in the entire game, but it should be okay since they debuff a ridiculous amount of res at least. That said, I'm not entirely sure how well she's going to perform in combat overall, but she should be able to take some hits in theory. But in practice, she's probably going to get absolutely demolished. At least her support is pretty nice, if nothing else. Julia also comes with Attack Res Finish, Time Pulse Helm, and a brand new special in Ice Wall, which is a 4 cooldown special that deals 70% of the unit's res as additional damage, and if the special is ready and a res check is met, it grants 40% damage reduction from the foe's next attack. Yeah, it's a pretty cool special. Get it? Get it, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. It's not a bad res-based special at all, and I think it releasing a month after Dragonflame is hilarious because the skill also works on dragons. In fact, it works on everything that isn't a staff unit, which is pretty surprising. They're going to release a special damage reduction counter soon, aren't they? Otherwise, the fodder is fine, but nothing that's outright amazing. Especially Attack Res Finish, didn't they just power creep this skill? And yeah, that sure is the summary of all time. Nothing too bad, but nothing outstanding per se, TBH, 2BH. To be quite H. I think the only thing that stood out from this unit was the choice of backpack. It was definitely a unit choice that made this banner go from extremely predictable to the most unpredictable thing in the span of a day. But I wouldn't be surprised if IS did some revisionism and a theoretical FE4 remake to redeem Ishtar in some way to make this even plausible. Personally, IS, if you're listening, you don't need to make her a redeemable villain. We still think she's hot either way. And of course, there's the free stuff, and everybody likes free stuff. We have Lana this time around, and she comes with Bouquet Baton Plus, which is the same weapon as Teenage, except instead of neutralizing the foe's bonuses, it removes penalties off allies. This is unironically fantastic because it doesn't overlap with Called to Serve, which means staff units are probably in the best place they've been since arguably ever, at least as far as generics are concerned, because there's so much stuff you could run on them now, like the 1 good assist skill they have, and the 1 good B slot they have, and maybe 1 or 2 other things. It's not a lot, but it still exists at least. There's also the Sacred Seals and Speed Defense Clash and Flow Refresh. Both are pretty decent seals for the most part, and normally this is where I insert a joke to say, oh, well, it's actually not that good after all, but there really isn't anything to joke about here. This is all just really good free-to-play stuff, so I would stop joking around. I said stop. And now that we've gone over the brand new bride units, I think it's time we rank the banner on the line graph that may or may not be a line graph at the end of the day. And would you look at that? The brand new bride banner has earned a 7 out of 10 on the line graph. There aren't 7 characters on the banner, but that's beside the point. The best Celif ship is Mjorn, followed by Lana, and I will not be taking any feedback on that. And you may be wondering to yourself, am I desperate enough to spend money on another man's wife? And hopefully not. The banner sure is decent, where being decent is the equivalent of horrible and irredeemable slop. Required mention of it being hyperbole. Of the units present, I would say that Celif is probably the best unit here, and by a decent margin given his competent combat prowess and solid support. Extra movement to himself and allies is pretty nice alongside his miracle stuff, but even then he's not really a must grab, especially in a day and age where we have 6 ranged nukes and this game has warped me to a point where 5 ranged nukes feel really awful. Please put me out of my misery. Julia is also pretty decent for what it's worth, since she has a fair bit of support and seemingly decent bulk, but I don't feel that she's really necessary or contributes that much overall. And don't even get me started on Lars. She's okay, yeah. The banner overall is fine, but the last thing I expected to see myself saying was that it's worse than the Fallen banner, and really if you had to pull on anything right now, it wouldn't be the Brides or Fallen. It would still have to be the dual Marth and Elm banner because the red share alone clears both of these banners combined. But I think the banner is going to end soon, so ooh, you will succumb to peer pressure. Ooh.
The Fire Emblem.